Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we don't just read the source material, we dissect it, find the hidden connections, and deliver the insights that actually matter.
Exactly.
Our mission today is a high-speed, globe-trotting analysis. We're doing a deep dive into the competitive reality series, The Amazing Race, TAR.
We've got a really comprehensive stack of material here. Articles, strategy guides, contestant interviews, and they all detail the evolution of the modern gameplay. We're
Right.
tracking the massive impact of global events, the rise of these notorious alliances, and maybe most importantly, the psychological shift from what we call the adventure years to what the sources now definitively call the modern social era.
And the core conflict, the thing that really anchors this whole deep dive, is this stunning failure of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, despite the show running for more than 2 decades, despite contestants having access to every episode ever filmed, so many of them arrive, in the words of the host, Phil Keoghan, consistently ill-prepared.
And it's for stuff they should absolutely see coming. You'd think the bare minimum for a race that spans, 30-plus countries would be mastering the logistics of travel. But no.
Yeah.
The absolute perennial classic failure we see, and it often causes elimination, is the inability to drive a manual transmission car.
Stick shift. It sounds almost ridiculous.
It is.
You know you're going to Europe, you know you're going to parts of South America where automatic rentals are, like, super rare.
Right.
And yet there they are, teams stalled out on the side of the road, grinding the gearbox, losing their lead, all because they didn't practice a basic skill they knew they'd need.
It's the perfect metaphor for the modern game, really. The assumption for decades was that physical fitness, speed, that was the key.
Yeah, be the fastest runners.
But if you fail at a simple, predictable logistical task, like driving a stick shift, all the athleticism in the world won't save you. The real prep isn't gym time anymore. It's about map reading, it's practicing that manual transmission, and really, really strategizing for the social game.
If you fail the basics, you don't even get to the hard part.
Exactly. You don't even get to play the strategic game.
Okay, so let's unpack the greatest logistical challenge the show has ever faced. We need to start with Section 1. The seismic impact of a global crisis that completely reset the rules of the race.
We have to begin with Scene 33. It's truly unique in television history. It was the race that stopped the world, or I guess the world stopped the race.
Right.
Production started in early 2020, but after just 3 legs, the race just hit this immovable object that was the COVID-19 pandemic.
And this wasn't just like a brief pause. This was the longest pit stop in history.
An abrupt, indefinite halt. It stretched into a staggering 19-month hiatus. For a show that relies on constant nonstop motion, I mean, this was operationally and narratively unprecedented. It changed everything.
And what's so fascinating to me here is the emotional and psychological side of that break. When the teams finally restarted the race in the fall of 2021, they were technically still competing, sure, but they had lived through this massive shared global experience.
The sources really emphasized this surreal emotional shift. The teams had gone from being, competitive opponents to just individuals who had seen the world change.
Yeah.
People lost jobs, they navigated lockdown, maybe dealt with illness or loss. This period, it fostered this unique level of connection, almost a shared trauma that was way deeper than anything you'd see in a normal season.
They weren't just racing anymore. They were reuniting after a world crisis.
Totally.
I remember the host, Phil Keoghan, he talked about this. For years, his catchphrase was, "The world is waiting for you."
Right.
After the break, he said that the world wasn't waiting when COVID first broke out. But when the race finally resumed, he felt like he could genuinely tell them, okay, now the world is waiting for you again.
And that emotional resonance, it was powerful. But it was also quickly tempered by the cold reality of new safety protocols.
Of course.
CBS and the production company, they had these super strict return-to-work mandates. And those mandates fundamentally changed the physical logistics of how people traveled.
Which brings us to the most defining logistical constraint of the modern era. The chartered travel system.
Yep. Started in season 33, became standard for 34.
So what did that actually look like?
To minimize COVID exposure, to maintain this closed production bubble, the show eliminated commercial travel completely.
Right.
Instead, production used chartered aircraft. There's a report of a Titan Airways Boeing 757 being used for season 34, and it transported all the teams, camera operators, crew, everyone between countries.
A 757. That's a massive logistical shift. I mean, just think about the operational cost and the complexity of chartering a jet for weeks on end
Oh, it's huge.
versus just handing the teams a credit card for commercial flights.
Yeah.
That's a huge investment in safety.
It is, and the implication for the game is profound. The logistical chaos that defined the frantic flight
Oh,
scramble,
yeah, the best part.
the mastery of booking obscure routes, begging for upgrades, all of it just disappeared overnight. That used to be the strategic differentiator. A team could be 10 hours behind, but they'd book a smarter flight and completely neutralize that deficit.
So if the flight scramble, which is the great equalizer, is gone, how did production compensate? Did they just bake equalizers into the legs themselves?
They absolutely had to. With chartered planes, every team lands at the same time, so production implemented mandatory group starts.
Okay.
Instead of staggered starts based on when you finish the last leg, teams are often held together to limit exposure and keep crews contained, and then released all at once, usually at like 9 a.m. when an attraction opens.
That makes the race so much more linear.
Totally.
You can't rely on airport strategy. You have to rely entirely on speed and how fast you can do the tasks. It shifts the whole competitive clock.
Exactly. And the constraints of the safety bubble also dictated the race locations. The routes had to be based entirely on global COVID rates and the ability to minimize interactions in airports or on public transit.
And that ended up changing the geography of the race, didn't it?
It did. The constraints forced new formats we hadn't seen. Season 34 started outside the U.S. for the first time ever. They kicked it off at Nymphenburg Palace in Munich, Germany.
Which is a beautiful but also very controlled environment.
Exactly, a ready-made bubble. And despite these huge constraints, they still managed to keep that cultural exposure mandate.
Right.
Season 34, for instance, they managed to visit Jordan for the first time in the franchise's history, showcasing the ancient city of Petra.
Wow.
So the producers showed they could adapt, they could still provide that cultural immersion, but the underlying mechanics totally changed. The logistical chaos is gone, replaced by this highly calculated, standardized approach.
And that logistical shift feeds perfectly into the next major change we see in the sources.
Yeah.
As travel got simpler, the focus shifted entirely onto interpersonal strategy.
When you're constantly starting together and traveling on the same plane, the social relationships become everything.
Right. Which brings us to Section 2, the social arena, and how alliances began to weaponize the rules.
This is the central tension of the modern race. Is it a purely physical and logistical contest, or is it a social game?
And a lot of purists say it's not supposed to be a social game.
They do, but the rule set itself specifically twists like the U-turn and the yield. They are explicitly designed to encourage teams to interact strategically and, manipulate the outcome.
And the absolute zenith, the most notorious example of this weaponized cooperation, was the Mine 5 alliance from Season 32.
Oh, yeah.
Let's really dig into how this alliance formed and why it caused such an uproar.
So it was 5 teams, including the eventual winners, Will and James. They didn't really form out of camaraderie. It was more out of defense and aggression.
Really?
Yeah, sources indicate the alliance solidified early because the core members felt threatened by the perceived softness of other teams.
Softness.
They saw other teams helping Kaylin and Haley, the blondes, when they fell into last place. The Mine 5 decided that preemptive cooperation within their group was necessary to just crush any external threats.
So their philosophy is basically, we survive together by making sure everyone outside this circle gets eliminated.
Exactly. And the system they used created this massive structural imbalance between physical tasks and mental puzzles.
Okay, walk us through that. How did they weaponize information sharing?
If a detour or a roadblock involved a puzzle or decoding or an attention to detail search, anything that wasn't just sheer physical work like carrying rocks, they just shared the answers.
So one team solves it.
And then they would just communicate the solution to the other 4 teams. They'd use shared notes at the task site or even text messages during the non-racing hours. It just completely neutralized the challenge's difficulty.
That means a complex mental task, something that should have been a killer challenge and maybe eliminated a team, became a non-factor.
For 5 of the remaining teams, yep. We saw it specifically on the Berlin Wall Challenge, which required matching sections of the wall to historical figures, and the scrambled letters task. For a normal team, those tasks took time and deduction.
For the Mine 5, it was just copy and paste.
Basically. It handed a huge advantage to the more physical teams within the alliance, making sure they just sailed through tasks that demanded mental agility.
That structural flaw where cooperation makes the mental game irrelevant, it was infuriating for viewers. But their strategy wasn't just cooperative, it was also aggressive.
That's where the most intense criticism landed. The Alliance was lambasted for how they used the double yield. They used this powerful race-stopping weapon on Kalen and Haley.
The Blondes, the same team they were mad about other people helping.
Then the very same. And at that point, they were already struggling and were objectively the weakest team in that leg.
Wait, if they were already the weakest team, why waste a yield on them? Wouldn't a better strategy be to use it on a team you've been trading first place with? A real threat.
That was the widely voiced critique. Logically, it seems like a, quote, shitty strategy and just unnecessarily mean.
Yeah.
However, some sources suggest a counter-argument. The intent might not have been just securing that single-leg win. Instead, it was a display of sheer power and internal loyalty.
Oh, good.
By publicly executing the weakest team, they reinforced their dominance and sent a clear message to any other teams. Resistance is futile. It was about solidifying the Alliance for the long term, even if it was tactically flawed in the short term.
That makes the Alliance less about survival and more about social engineering, intimidation. It sounds less like the Amazing Race and more like high-stakes politics.
And that transition to high-stakes social strategy was perfectly encapsulated in the crossover seasons, where alliances were basically pre-baked.
Let's talk about Season 38, European Adventure. It had a cast full of former Big Brother house guests.
Right, so if the Mine Five had to forge their alliance under pressure, these teams came in with existing social capital.
The social game was already maxed out.
Absolutely, and the standout example was Jaws and Jag Baines. Jag had already won Big Brother, so he was a master of social dynamics. He and Jazz just put on this incredibly dominant performance, winning 7 legs.
7 legs. That ties the record, right?
It ties the record for most first-place finishes in a row. And Jag's success in both shows really highlighted that high-level social strategy is now a transferable skill across reality competitions.
The most fascinating part of their strategy, and something that really distinguishes a true strategist from just a raw athlete, was their intentional decision to not win sometimes.
That's so critical. Why dominate every single leg only to put a bigger target on your back?
Exactly.
In the penultimate leg, Jaws and Jag intentionally stopped their own momentum and waited for their alliance partners, Natalie and Stephanie, to check in first.
So they sacrificed a first-place finish, which offers no real advantage in that leg anyway since it's non-elimination, just to secure a strategic advantage for the finale.
Exactly. The source analysis points out that the move served 2 purposes. First, it showed supreme loyalty to their partners, ensuring their support if needed in the final leg.
And second,
it reduced the heat on themselves. If you're seen as invincible, you invite U-turns. By strategically giving away that leg, they lowered their threat profile just enough heading into the $1 million finale. It was pure strategy.
To really appreciate this evolution, we should look back at some of the historical conflicts. Because when alliances fail or are just rejected, the results can be memorable.
Oh, yeah. You can't discuss betrayal without mentioning the mud betrayal from Season 5.
Charlotte and Myrna and Brandon and Nicole, a perfect illustration of the old cutthroat style.
Remind us of what happened there in Argentina.
Charlotte and Myrna, who were already struggling, they stopped their own race to help Brandon and Nicole get their car physically unstuck from deep mud. A massive, generous act.
A huge expenditure of time and energy.
Moments later, Charlotte and Myrna make a navigational wrong turn. Brandon and Nicole see them make the mistake and just drive right by, refuse to wait even a second.
And the quote that defined that era.
Brandon's iconic, unapologetic line, "We can't wait for teams making wrong turns." That statement just crystallized the early race mentality. It was self-preservation, not collective survival.
But sometimes cooperation happens out of necessity, creating what one source called the accidental alliance in Season 24.
That alliance formed because 6 teams were just stuck waiting out long hours of operation delay in Switzerland. They had nothing to do but talk.
And it quickly turned strategic when a puzzle came up, the Ford Mustang Challenge, involving distances on road signs.
And the puzzle was solved not out of generosity, but out of malice toward a rival team.
Precisely. Leo and Jamal, who were part of this accidental alliance, helped the Country Girls solve that complex puzzle, not because they loved the Country Girls, but specifically to ensure they would check in ahead of their bitter rivals, Brendan and Rachel.
Rachel, the notoriously competitive Big Brother couple.
It was the classic enemy of my enemy principle. It just proved that whether an alliance is planned like the Mine Five or accidental like this one, cooperation is just a tool to manipulate the boot order. The idea that it's just a race is increasingly naive.
So if social manipulation is dominating the narrative, we have to ask if the actual mechanics of the race, the tasks themselves, are keeping up. That takes us to Section 3.
The mechanics of the race and how challenges and equalizers are evolving.
And the sources are pretty consistent on one point here. There has been a perceived dilution of difficulty.
Yeah. In the adventure years, you saw tasks that were physically grueling, designed to break teams.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Season 6 hay bale challenge.
Yeah.
That genuinely took teams hours and hours of brutal physical labor just to find one tiny clue.
Exactly. That kind of sustained commitment, physical or mental, is less common now. Modern tasks tend to be easier, shorter, more linear, which isn't necessarily a failure of production. It's often just a necessity for faster TV pacing.
Right.
But the consequence is that navigation or just sheer taxi luck often determines the outcome, rather than mastering the task itself.
So if the tasks are less likely to create those multi-hour gaps, the order you arrive often dictates the order you finish. Early momentum becomes critical.
Let's reflect on some of those killer tasks from history that genuinely broke teams, just to illustrate what we've lost in raw difficulty.
Okay, let's start with the gross factor.
Has to be the Season 5 caviar roadblock. Teams had to eat 2 pounds of caviar.
2 pounds.
2 pounds. The sources described the contestants looking utterly sickly. It was a digestive challenge as much as a mental one.
Then you have the ones that cause mental breakdowns.
The Season 16 Morse code detour. It was set inside the secluded bunker, and it required contestants to memorize, decode, and transmit complex Morse code. The U-turn team, Heidi and Joe, just ended up in tears, utterly defeated.
That clip was so devastating they put it in the opening credits for the season.
They did. And for pure organizational nightmares, you have the Season 25 shipping container roadblock.
Oh, that one was brutal.
They dropped contestants into a massive shipping container yard, and they had to run around finding the names and numbers of every visited location in the race, and then put them in order.
It took hours. It wasn't physical strain, but the psychological toll of searching through a field of identical steel boxes.
And of course, we can't forget the tasks that became iconic because of a viral moment.
The Season 17 watermelon launching detour.
Right. It was a catapult challenge, but it's only iconic because Claire got hit directly in the head by a rebounding watermelon.
One of the most unforgettable clips in Tar history. It mixed incompetence with unexpected danger.
And this all highlights the struggle for producers. How do you balance the show's purpose cultural exposure with challenges that are actually fair and difficult?
That balancing act often results in these luck versus skill challenges, which are highly criticized.
Yeah, the needle in a haystack tasks, like the king cake baby hunt in the Season 32 finale. Finding a tiny plastic baby in thousands of slices of cake is just pure chance.
Sources agree these should generally be avoided, unless a team is so far behind they need a Hail Mary to catch up.
The show has also historically struggled with unbalanced detours, where one choice is just clearly easier or faster than the other.
Oh, all the time. Season 7 had teams either weighing strangers on the street, which was super easy, or doing code decryption. Everyone chose weighing.
Or Season 10, mashing coal into bricks versus building an intricate, fragile birdcage.
And sometimes the imbalance wasn't even the task design, it was local logistics.
Absolutely. There are cases where taxi drivers only knew how to get to one of the 2 detour locations, basically making the choice for the teams.
So producers saw this, and they tried to fix it with these massive structural twists. Most notably, the fork in the road in Season 37.
Okay, let's slow down and clarify the fork in the road because it's a big deal. It was designed for the largest cast ever, 14 teams, and it basically created 2 parallel races.
And one team from each side of the fork was eliminated in the same leg.
It was essentially a non-switching detour. It locked you in. So you had Side A and Side B. 7 teams raced Side A, 7 teams raced Side B. The last team on Side A is eliminated, and the last team on Side B is eliminated.
And the imbalance of the 2 paths proved disastrous right away.
In the Season 37 premiere, the fork split teams between a lion dance and an opera singing task. The lion dance was faster, more physical. The opera singing was way slower, required strict adherence to criteria, and had a very picky judge.
This created a structural flaw. You weren't competing against the whole field, only the half that chose your path.
And the result was this paradox. The fastest team on the slower, subjective opera singing side could technically finish behind teams struggling on the faster lion dance side, yet still survive.
So it's entirely possible for the team that came in 8th place overall to be eliminated just because they were last on their specific path.
Exactly. That truly muddies the definition of a race.
It highlights the producer's struggle. They fixed the problem of everyone picking the same detour, but they created a scenario where finishing in the middle of the pack can still send you home.
It was a huge, risky twist. But sometimes elimination isn't about twists. It's about sheer, avoidable blunders.
Oh, those are the most painful to watch. The danger of switching detours too often is perfectly shown by Anthony and Bailey Smith in season 36.
They were eliminated after switching between the truck loading and culinary challenges a staggering 4 times. Every switch just hemorrhages minutes you can never get back.
That hesitation sealed their fate. And then there is the infamous, tragic mistake of poor time management.
The $1 million bathroom break.
Right?
The story is legendary. A female team lost a crucial final spot by deciding to take a bathroom break instead of checking in at the mat. In that final sprint, mere seconds are the difference between $1 million and nothing.
The cost of that break is almost unimaginable. But the ultimate refusal to compete, the moment where psychological pressure just completely overcame the desire to win, has to be Mika and Kanan in season 15.
That was genuinely painful to watch. The roadblock was descending a 6-story-high water slide, the leap of faith. Mika was terrified of heights and water and she couldn't do it.
She struggled for 45 agonizing minutes.
And she was being taunted by other teams passing them. Ultimately, she refused to go down and forfeited the challenge.
And a refusal to complete a task, even if it's physically possible, is a 4-hour penalty. In a modern race, that's instant elimination.
It proves that psychological preparedness, overcoming your phobias, is just as critical as practicing a stick shift. If you aren't willing to go all in, you're done.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, moving away from physical tasks and logistics and focusing instead on the mindset and preparation that defines modern champions.
Yeah, the idea that only the youngest, fittest, most stereotypical competitors, the firemen, the athletes, can win, is being challenged by recent seasons.
Right. If the tasks are often easier and logistics are standardized, quick thinking and mental strategy become the deciding factors.
We saw clear evidence of this in season 36 with Ricky and Caesar, who won first place twice. They succeeded despite admitting they were far less fit than many of their younger competitors.
Even older contestants like 55-year-old teacher Angie Butler.
Right. Their success wasn't about raw speed, but superior quick thinking. They chose detours that played to their strengths and avoided brute force. It proves strategy can outweigh stamina.
And what's fascinating now is how contestants are weaponizing seemingly negative mental health traits like anxiety and ADHD as strategic advantages.
The ultimate case study for this is Kim and Penn Holderness, the season 33 winners.
They're the oldest team ever to win, right? Kim at 45 and Penn at 47?
They are, and they openly discussed how they channeled their mental health struggles into meticulous strategy. They used them as competitive fuel.
So let's start with Kim's anxiety and her note-taking strategy. How did she turn a source of stress into a winning tool?
Kim talked about how her anxiety fueled meticulous, nonstop note-taking. She treated every aspect of the race like an ongoing audit. She logged precise arrival times, exact distances, and crucially tracked the movements and decisions of every single competitor.
Wow.
And she said she found the act of constantly logging this data very calming.
So she wasn't just taking notes, she was creating a running mental spreadsheet of the competition.
Exactly. This intense, anxiety-driven prep meant they had this organized memory bank that others just lacked. When a challenge required them to recall the order of visited cities or subtle details, Kim often had the information instantly accessible. She was doing a perpetual real-time audit.
And Penn utilized his ADHD, turning it into a focused asset during high-stress tasks.
Penn explained that in challenges where you have to absorb a ton of information in a short, intense period like translating a text or memorizing a pattern, his ADHD allowed for hyperfocus.
He called it his superpower.
Right. He could lock in on a single task, shutting out all distractions, enhancing his memory far beyond what other teams could manage in that high-stress environment.
And if we connect this back to that 19-month hiatus, the Holderness team also maximized that time off.
It absolutely did. They didn't just wait, they actively prepared. They used the hiatus to hone their map-reading skills, knowing that navigation within a city would be a primary killer of momentum.
They understood the mental game was the true modern differentiator.
And their victory confirmed it. Preparation and strategic mindset now trump raw athleticism.
But on the other side of that, the race is designed to actively strip away mental clarity through one major mechanism: sleep deprivation.
It's the constant, unavoidable challenge. Research confirms that lack of sleep severely impairs decision-making, reaction time, perceived exertion, all of it. Teams are operating in a cognitive fog almost constantly.
And that lack of sleep compounds the single most important factor: team cohesion.
It's a known contributor to interpersonal conflict. In a competition built around two people working together under duress, lack of sleep often impairs rational thought and leads to major emotional conflicts.
Right, those famous on-screen quarrels.
Exactly. Managing the partnership through that psychological duress is just as critical as navigating a detour.
So if the Holderness strategy shows how to win through optimized preparation, Kaylin and Haley, the blondes from season 32, they offer a final example of a winning mindset based purely on resilience.
They exemplify the cardinal rule: never surrender. Despite being targeted constantly, terrible taxi luck, being singled out by the Mine 5, that means double yield, they maintained this almost unwavering positivity.
They were laughing about the second yield they got.
They were. Their strategy wasn't winning legs, but just refusing to break down. Their positive energy kept them focused when other teams would have dissolved into infighting.
And though they were ultimately eliminated, their spirit provided a necessary contrast to the ruthless calculation of the Mine 5.
It really did. It proved that while strategy is dominant, resilience is the only trait that ensures you reach the end of the line, even if you don't cross it first.
So what does this all mean for the future of the Amazing Race? Our deep dive reveals that the competitive landscape is now definitively shaped by two powerful, interacting forces pushing the game toward strategy.
On the one hand, you have the external mandatory constraints. The COVID-era chartered travel and group starts have formalized the start of each leg. They've removed the logistical chaos of the flight scramble.
Which makes the race more linear, more predictable.
Right. And on the other hand, aggressive internal social strategy, the calculated cooperation of the Mind 5, the built-in advantages of the Big Brother alliances, has become an explicit, accepted mechanism for winning.
Winning now relies on manipulating the social field as much as running a fast mile.
And production is fighting back against that formulaic gameplay. We've seen them introduce massive twists like the fork in the road to force tough choices and ensure high-stakes elimination.
They're determined to maintain the balance between those deep cultural experiences, like Petra or Munich, and dynamic, unpredictable competitive strategy.
The show's futures is exciting because it's actively trying to evolve. We know sources are referencing anticipation for new twists. There's continuous buzz around season 40, maybe an all-star season, or pairing unlikely celebrities like a Snoop Dogg or Drew Barrymore with fans.
It's becoming a metagame, a strategy chess match played on a global scale.
Yep.
And this leaves us with our final provocative thought for you, the learner. The biggest challenge in the Amazing Race is no longer just outrunning a rival team, but surviving the race's constant evolution and ever-shifting rules. If knowledge is truly power, how much of a modern team's success comes from raw, immediate speed, and how much comes from the strategy gleaned by watching the 38 previous seasons and anticipating exactly which skill practicing a stick shift, implementing anxiety-fueled note-taking, or forging a strategic alliance will be the absolute necessary requirement when they hit that final map.
The game now rewards the strategist who knows that if the tasks are easy, the social game is everything. And if the social game is everything, the details, like knowing your rival's weaknesses or avoiding a crippling detour switch, those become the true million-dollar killers.
That's all for this deep dive. We hope this knowledge helps you win your next meeting, or at least gives you the confidence to demand driving lessons for your next European vacation. Travel safe, and we'll catch you next time.